So where are we at with Brock Purdy after 4 weeks of football? Where we're at is 1,019 yards, which is 254 yards per game, which with a 17-game schedule is a pace of 4,330 yards, which would be a 49ers record. The record is currently held by Jeff Garcia, who did it back in 2000, 4,278 yards. Steve Young just behind him in two categories. And then Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo in 2019. Let me make this bigger for you. Jimmy Garoppolo, Jeff Garcia, Steve Young, and Jimmy G. Now, it's been 23 years since Jeff Garcia set that record. We're in 23 years since Jeff Garcia set that record. It was pretty incredible at the time. I mean, at the time, you would have thought that you were watching the 49ers' next great quarterback. Jeff Garcia was undrafted in 1994 out of San Jose State. He was too small, 6'1". He went to the CFL. He did not get to go to the Niners for several years. He was the CFL MVP in 98, comes to the Niners in 99. Steve Young's getting concussions. He splits reps. He ends up starting 10 games. The Niners go, we need another quarterback. Well, actually, they needed two other quarterbacks. They drafted two quarterbacks in the 2000 draft. Giovanni Carmazzi, who never played in a game, in the third round, and Tim Rattay in the seventh round. Well, another similarity to the story, even though it was never supposed to be him, it became him. He beat out both those guys. And in that year, he threw for those 4,278, those yards, second to Peyton Manning, 31 touchdowns that year, second to Manning and Dante Culpepper. His 63% completion percentage. But back in the day, 63%, you were a sharpshooter. 63% completion percentage, was third in the league behind Kurt Warner and Brian Griese. And his interception percentage was second lowest in the league among starters, only to Brian Griese. 2 years later, 49ers head coach Steve Mariucci is out. Garcia's production off a cliff. He's gone, and Niners are on their steady march to being the worst team in the NFL. Now, the game's changed a lot in 23 years, obviously. Some of the numbers that looked crazy back then or really impressive back then are not really impressive anymore. But 4,300 yards is still impressive. Last year, Patrick Mahomes, led the NFL with 5,200, actually just over 5,200 yards. But 4,330, which is the pace that Purdy's on for a 17-game season, and it's an early pace, that would have been seventh last year in the league, just ahead of Josh Allen. Right now, his current total yardage is eighth in the league behind, and John and I talked about it yesterday, Tua, Stafford, Cousins, C.J. Stroud, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and Jared Goff. So I just said, early pace, only 4 games. Can he keep the pace? And the answer is, yeah, probably. This year, he's averaging 28 passing attempts per game. Last year, he averaged in the 6 games that he was the basic, 5 starts plus the Dolphins game. So 6 games, 27 passing attempts in those 6 games. So it's about the same passing attempts, but the yards are going up. 217, 218 yards per game last year. Now it's 254. And it's not all just yak. He's moving the ball down the field when he throws it. So by basically, every measure, he's in pretty good shape. You add to it the fact that the Niners have more good players to catch the ball than they have available passes to throw them, as evidenced against the Cardinals when Deebo Samuel didn't have a catch. So, I said all offseason, you got to prepare for some regression, at least in the stats. But remember, Kyle Juszczyk come on the show and said, well, the thing that they're all going to try and do, pressure him, they already did that last year. He already knows how to handle it to a degree. And guess what? When Wink Martindale showed up with the pressure, Brock was really good. Historic pressure, Brock was really good. So while you got to prepare for some statistical regression, like maybe a couple picks, maybe, you also have to prepare for actual improvement in the player, which we've seen. He's gotten better. Of course he did, I guess, in one sense. Now, there is a big test coming because in the next 2 weeks, the 49ers will face the two top passing defenses in the NFL so far through 4 games. The Cleveland Browns, number 1 by a healthy margin, and the Dallas Cowboys, number 2 in passing defense. They also in Dallas get the number 2 defense in the league in interceptions, 7 picks so far this year for the Cowboys. So these will be the tests. Now, when you think about the record, which, is just a way to talk about them, there's not going to be, you don't get your number retired right away. But when you think about the record, he's on such a good pace right now that a bad game here or there, you still have time to recover. Not a lot of wiggle room, given the pace and given what Garcia did. But, what's more important the next 2 weeks is that you find ways to win. All right, this is a quickie. Today, but let's get to a few comments. I remember back in the days, you told John the Niners basically had to run the Princeton offense often. Yeah, I did feel that way. That the Niners struggled to move the ball. I didn't feel that way. It was reflected in the way they played. The Niners struggled to move the ball. What that means, if you're new to the show, it was that it was often a struggle for them to get down the field in like 6 plays. Like it was hard to be explosive when they really had to be. And it would take 10, 12 plays. It was hard to play from behind sometimes with Jimmy because it would take so many plays to get down the field. And that's what I call the Princeton offense. You weren't bombing threes. You weren't just giving a guy a one-on-one crossover. Let's give the ball to our star player and let him make a move. I mean, they were kind of in a way with Debo, but in basketball terminology, they couldn't do that. They had to get seven really clean passes, 6 back screens, and then a layup. Steven asks, what are your thoughts on Brock Purdy's back shoulder throws? Seems like we've never had that guy who would trust his receivers to come back and get the ball, but we do now. Him and Ayuk are rolling. Ayuk has looked like maybe Ayuk would have been rolling with anybody, but because he was great in camp, but him and Ayuk look dialed right now. So yeah, they got it figured out. Those two got it figured out. Robbie asks, guys, seeing Brock's performance so far, are you still intrigued by Darnold? Yes, of course. Nothing has changed in that regard for Sam. What has changed is the leash has gotten much longer for Brock. I said before the year, and Greg Papa told me, I think you're off. I said before the year that given how much they like Darnold and given Darnold's circumstances of being a soon impending free agent, that the leash would not be extremely long, but that was 4 games ago. The leash has gotten longer. Nothing's changed on Sam. I'm still intrigued by him. The problem for him is if he doesn't get to play, right, you need Brock healthy at this point. That looks like 4 games in. The only thing that would get Sam Darnold on the field or victory formations, which Darnold's come on for a couple of meals this year. But the problem for Sam would be, where could he go after this year that would put him in good a position as Kyle Shanahan would? Not going back to the Jets. Miami, they got a quarterback. So it's a weird spot for Darnold right now because it feels like he found a home in the preseason. Maybe he sticks around. I don't know, but that's it's nice to not have to talk about that for sure. It's nice to not even have to think about that. On pace to have the number 1 all-time passer rating. If he keeps this up, he'll be at least top 5. He is number 1 in the NFL right now. Back shoulder throws being completed, interior pressure from the D-line. We've never been this good as a team. I mean, I do think the defensive line has been pretty dynamic before. 4 games. Big test next 2 weeks. Dallas and Cleveland. Big test. Robbie's back for it. Might sound crazy, but hear me out. Do you think Breck's interceptions were him testing his limits, aka practicing? I sense sarcasm. We have talked about this. You may recall that nobody here was freaking out over Brock interceptions, and that was suggested many times, as Robbie, you are suggesting there. So all is well. Purdy won't get those Mahomes numbers because of the defense. Mahomes had to, in past years, do this thing because his subpar D. Do you see a 400-yard multi-TD game from Brock? I absolutely think it's possible. Yeah. I mean, the game that he had 2 weeks ago, that was 330 yards or something in that range. That was a pretty kind of standard. It didn't feel like a crazy game. He didn't have to go off or go to 310 yards. All right, so still 90 yards away from 400. I think almost any quarterback, if they're the starter long enough, maybe the stats don't back this up, but can flirt with that 400. So yeah, I think he's got one in him. Absolutely. I mean, the level of efficiency, unfortunately, you know what it would take is to be in a game. Those are often like you lose those games. A lot of guys, right? Like when you got to throw for four, I bet if we've been back and looked at some of the 400-yard passing games in recent history, they're losing efforts. Nobody throws for 400 yards usually just in the flow of the game. You do it because you have to do it, or you're just utterly dominant. I mean, that happens too. I'm not going to act like it doesn't. But I think if we played the percentages and looked up 400-yard passing games in recent years, they're probably games where you had to do it and you might have lost. But yes, I mean, the short answer is absolutely. I mean, look at this. Look at the players he's got on this team. If it turns into a game where they can't run the ball, but they're still just giving it to the same guys in different ways, although, you know, I think even down a couple scores, if there's enough time, they'll still run the ball. So, yeah, short answer, yes. I think he's got it in him. Where will it be? I mean, I'm going to target, it's very soon, I'm going to target the Minnesota game, October 22nd, Monday Night Football. Kyle's breakup letter to Kirk Cousins will be Brock throwing for 400 yards that day. Since teams know the Niners' strength of D-line, which do the linebackers play so soft when it's going to be? You have to clarify that question for me, Burger. BV Lee, looks like Juice isn't getting phased out of the offense after all. Of course not. Of course not. Why would he be getting phased out of the offense? He's in on every play. Why would they phase him out of the offense? Nothing's wrong with Mahomes. Mahomes is fine. Mahomes is out there screwing around like he has been for several years and being the best quarterback in the NFL while doing it. Gammon says Debo's run blocking efforts are so much better than last year's. It really is a testament, right? You think back a few weeks to A.J. Brown being very upset on the Eagles sideline when the Eagles were doing the right thing and just pounding the ball, running the clock out. They immediately adjusted what they tried to do, and it almost cost them that game. Deebo Samuel had a game yesterday where he did not have a catch. He had 3 carries. And still played as a completed game otherwise as you could have asked. Blocking, decoying with effort, right? Not Chase Claypool effort. But when you are a player of that level, how you run each play, even when you're not getting the ball, dramatically affects the play. And Deebo Samuel, he gets it. Clearly. They all do because they all play hard. It's hard to find that Chase. I haven't seen the Chase Claypool. I mean, you take a snap off, quote unquote, the play's going to the other side on a run here or there. But, when all eyes are on you, it's like being Steph Curry. If you lag through double screens because actually on this play, you're a decoy, which why would you do that? But let's just say, then it affects the play. If you run hard and make them believe you're getting the ball, it affects the play in a positive way. And, the word that I thought people invented a few years ago for Steph Curry was a really great word, gravity. Like because of his gravity, he pulls people to him and creates openings for other guys on the field, even when he doesn't have the ball. And, I think it's perfect. I think that's perfect for Debo. It's perfect for McCaffrey. It's perfect for all of them. I'm just looking here. So Kyle Juszczyk has played 108 of the Niners' 208 offensive snaps. So skill guy snaps for the Niners. Debo has the most, 178. Kittle, 171. McCaffrey, 166. Juszczyk, 108. Yeah, not getting phased out. Again, nobody here was claiming that, but okay, got to roll. Thanks for hanging. By the way, if you were on the live stream yesterday with John and I, There were a couple super chats I didn't get to. So I don't know if those super chat people are here, but apologize for that. We were in a rush. Like today, I'm in a bit of a rush, so I'm not getting all the comments, but made a note of that last night. Don't do that again. So sorry about that. All right. Hit that like button if you're here. Check out the podcast if you missed yesterday's show down in the description below, or you can watch the video from yesterday's full podcast, Haberman and Middlekoff. But if you want to take it on the roll, just go down to the description. Podcast is there. If you're here, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. The more you like it, the more this sucker grows, the velocity builds, and more people get to the content, and that helps us. So we appreciate that. And on that note, be back with more soon. Have a great day. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for hanging later.